Screw the guy who gave us OG. All right. Anyways, my speech starts in 3, 2, 1. I believe that when you're already having trouble putting food on the table, when your child's future is fundamentally screwed over because they now need to work instead of actually valuing their education, you need some way out, and it's essential for your child to have a future and essential for you to actually be able to put food on your table. On that basis, so proud to propose. All right, out of my speech today, I'm just gonna have a framing and 2 quick arguments on 1, breaking the cycle of poverty, and 2, how we have a principal obligation to do this. All right, onto some frame. We just believe that the only frame we really need here is that when you actively sacrifice this portion of your lifetime, you're just going to get a large extent of wealth. What this looks like is just getting a lot of money when you actually sacrifice your lifetime. All right, with that out of the way, argument number 1, breaking the cycle of poverty. So first of all, why are minorities struggling and unable to sustain themselves in the status quo? We believe the biggest factor is simply the fact that they don't have money. Okay, yeah, sure.
Are poor people paid more when they sacrifice their life, or are rich people paid?
I just think it fundamentally doesn't really even matter here how much money you're paid. It's simply a fact that you are going to be paid money to a large extent based upon your socioeconomic status. All right, anyways, so we believe why minorities are struggling within the status quo is simply that they don't have enough money for themselves. Why is this true? Simply because many of them lack a substantial education because they usually grow up in poor neighborhoods. And what this means is that many of them have to take up lower paying jobs. So what is just many minorities are really struggling to put food on the table in the first place. We believe this also disproportionately affects their children, because now their children are forced to actually take upon jobs so that they can help their family to actually get food on the table for their siblings. What this does is it gets them out of school and it perpetuates the cycle of poverty because they don't get a good education, which means they don't get a good job, meaning they themselves in a matter of 20 years will be where their parents already are, living paycheck to paycheck. All right, how does this motion solve the problem? This motion solves the problem because it's likely first of all, why are people likely to opt into this in the first place, especially for these minority parents? We just believe this for 3 reasons. Number 1, parents already fundamentally sacrifice a lot for their children. You can see this with simply them sacrificing their time to take care of them, or sacrificing the time to even read a bedtime story with them. Number 2, we believe that parents sort of just have unconditional love for their child because they see that child as an extension of themselves, so they obviously love that child. And number 3, we believe they think of their child as their only hope because they've already been screwed over within life. Their child is the only hope to get out of the cycle of poverty in the first place. So it's just likely that parents opt into this motion. All right, why does this help children to escape the cycle of poverty? This is 2 ways. Number one, if when you fundamentally have more money, when you aren't struggling enough to actually put food on the table, and when your child doesn't have to actually work a job as soon as they get out of high school in order to also help the family actually survive, what this allows the child to do is simply focus more on their education. We believe even under our side, you're not going to get children becoming the CEOs of nations, right? But what you're actually going to get is simply that they are able to get something like a high school diploma, which actively opened up so many more doors to them because they now don't have to worry about their jobs. Number 2, we just believe that even if you buy their POI that this money will be marginal, that if you don't buy that POI that this money will be marginal, what this essentially is able to do is that now you have more money to actually contribute to your inheritance, so that your child, when they eventually grow up, have more money to actually sustain themselves. So the impact of this is simply that the children and of these minority groups, their lives are simply better because they're able to access more opportunities through having things such as a high school diploma, through having things such as a good education, which fundamentally helps them in the life where they don't have to live paycheck to paycheck and struggle to put food on the table. The second argument we want to do is that principally we have a moral obligation to do this. We believe number 1 is extension of a person's freedom of choice. Notice how in the status quo, people already sacrifice their time in their lives to actively work for money. Why is this true? Simply because when you go to work, what you are actively doing is sacrificing your lifetime, where you could be doing things like hanging out with your friends, where you could be doing things like caring for your children, so that you can actually make money within your life. You already do this within the status quo when you actually take the decision to go to work in the first place. We believe implementing this is an extension of your person's freedom of choice, simply because people value different things within their lives. I value debate. Other people see me as a lazy bum on the street, right? So what this essentially means is that we are able to actually judge how much people value giving money to their children versus how much people actually value having their lifetime in the first place. So you have that moral obligation for them to have the freedom of autonomy so that they can actually make this choice for themselves, which they already do in the status quo when they go to work. So we just believe that providing this choice for them is absolutely necessary, and you have a principal moral obligation. So honestly, I'm just impacting. We believe we're just going to overweigh all the other teams here simply because we affect minorities the most. We affect these most marginalized people and groups the most, because even though under our side you're probably not going to get like CEOs of like from these minority groups, at least these children are going to have like a much better lives under our side because they are able to access things like a high school diploma. What this means is that probably you're not going to have children who grow up to like they don't have to live paycheck to paycheck anymore, and they're actually able to provide for their family, even if they won't have to stress that much about their rent anymore under our side. And it's also simply that even if you don't buy this first argument, or they are able to mitigate it anyways, it's prerequisite to have like a person's, because people value different things in their lives, they principally should have the decision to what they want to do, what they want to actually do with their lifetime. And on that basis, so proud to propose.
I thank that speaker for that excellent speech. I now call upon the leader of opposition. Here.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. In my speech, I'll be giving 3 points, which are greed, how people usually will regret this in the future, and number 3, how it is going to be bad for the economy later on. First, onto some refutation. So I got from the government that they said that if you're struggling with putting food on the table, like sacrificing yourself is like the right thing to do. However, I disagree with this because like we think that money that you save will not support a family for the rest of their lives. So we don't think that sacrificing yourself is worth money, because at the end of the day, you can't buy someone's life with money. Onto the next point. They said that kids can graduate without the need for like worrying about their job or like worrying about putting up food on the table. I find this very ironic, because don't you think that kids will feel bad for that like their parent or that their like father or parent had to give up their lives for them, like just for them to like go and like get a diploma? And also university is very, very expensive too. And don't you also think that it like this fact that the parent had to like sacrifice themselves for them to complete like their education will be a burden on them? Okay, onto my first point, which is greed. Many people nowadays want more and more money, right? That is just a fact. For example, like Elon Musk is already considered like the richest man in the world, but he still wants more money, because this is evident because he's like creating all these like new Tesla models, even though he has more than enough money for himself to like to support both himself and his family for the rest of his life. How does this relate to an emotion? Well, people most likely get like this request to get a small amount in the beginning, right? That's what like most people do. They won't, yeah.
Do you really think Elon Musk wants more money simply because of you?
Well, yeah, because like everyone wants more money. That's why he's creating like these new models. If he already has enough money and he's like happy with the amount that he has, why would he like create all these like different models for cars and new things? And why would he like buy like X, for example, and he's already like really, really rich? Okay, where was I? Now, how does this relate to emotion? Many people will get like a small amount of like money at first place, like at first. Many people won't get like this big amount. They will first get a little bit, but later they will realize how easy it is to get the money, right? You don't have to work, you don't have to do anything. They will keep asking for more and more. This results to like most of the people, like many of these people who are in need of money and are very desperate for it, so they might not think about this very clearly before signing a part of their life off. And there are also no rules. In InfoFlight, did they not specify how like they would like murder this, or like this person will pass away? So there are no like boundaries. On to my next point now. People will usually regret this in the future, because most people think that like the future of like getting old and getting elderly is so far away. They will not think about how much it will like you will regret that in the future. And like even if in the rare cases that if the victim does not regret it because they think that like they gave this money to this family and it is worth it, their family members will definitely regret that they lost their loved ones for money. And at the end of the day, as I said before, someone's life cannot be bought with money. People might have kids or like adopt ones just to get more money too. Also, on my third point, how it is bad for the economy. There will be lots of money coming out of nowhere because of this system, right? People are signing this life off and getting this huge chunk of money. As a result, the value of money will drop, and things like basic necessities this will lead to inflation. So like basic things like necessities will get more expensive, and this refutes the government's case about how like this will support poor people for being like when they're struggling. Well, I don't think this is the case, because the amount of money that will like benefit the poor people, yes, but it is for the people who actually signed it off, like signed a part of life off. But in reality, every struggling citizen will be impacted by the negative impacts because the cost of food will grow up. Everything will be more expensive, and this impacts every struggling citizen. That even the ones who did not sign their life off to RobSpear. I'll take any POIs for now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, what have I given in the speech? I give you 3 points, which is how many people want more and more money, and it will lead to greed. The second point is that people will usually regret this, or the family members will regret this in the future. And number 3, how bad it is for the economy, and how even struggling citizens that did not agree to sign their life off to RobSpear will get impacted. I also succeeded the refutation to the OG, and I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.
I thank that speaker for that excellent speech. I now call upon the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Okay. Our speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Let's take little Timmy, all right? Little Timmy is a 16-year-old boy, and he lives in a low-income area, okay? What he does every night is he goes out every night with his friends, okay? He's smoking and drinking, and his scores and his test scores at his school are absolutely horrible. Now, all of this could be changed if just his parents spent just a little more time with him, like teaching him these life skills, disciplining him, to teaching him how education is important, and his life would have been changed. And on that basis, I'm so proud to propose. So, number 1, I will be explaining how my partner and our side has completely overweighed theirs. Number 1, this change, the RobSpear, is it takes a large majority of people who have been affected, right? Because of this thing, people in the minority area, low income areas, they will break this cycle, right? So obviously this is a good thing. And because of this, low income areas they're more sustained because they don't have that much discipline. They're more sustained to use drug abuse and stuff, and it also has a crime rate increase. And because of this, it also decreases crimes and stuff, right? Now, number 2, I will be comparing why our side is actually better than theirs, which is the status quo. Right now, the status quo, as my partner's already explained, low income people, they have so much things to worry about, right? They have to work a lot of hours just to sustain for their child and themselves, and yet they're still not earning enough money, right? Well, who's the main person affected in this situation? It's children, right? Because that their parents don't have enough time to spend with their children and stuff, then they're gonna have not as many resources. They're not gonna learn important life skills and stuff, and all of these core mechanics that you should have learned as a child, right? But now in our side, kids have the resources to pursue their interests, their hobbies, but most importantly, they have the ability to pursue their own education and stuff, right? On their side, they're just continuing this cycle of poverty, right? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer and stuff. Basically on our side, parents can spend more time with their kids and stuff, discipline them, teach them more educational things, more important life skills, more lessons. This brings more innovations on our side. It increases the level of improvement on our side. While theirs, they just keep a small percentage of rich people moving higher, while the low income people are just increasing and increasing. Now, moving on to why our side is the only way that works for low income people and how it's exclusive. Number 1, as I've already stated, parents and workers, they're always forced to work, and they're unable to care for their children while still unable to afford for themselves and their family. So what does this mean? They're inevitably stuck in this cycle forever, right? Currently, their children, they can't afford, they don't have the necessities, and once they have children, the future generations will also not have enough resource and knowledge, and this just carries the poverty cycle over, right? Now, how do we change this? With RobSpear. RobSpear is the only accessible way for all people in poverty, to actually give their children a chance with life, and this is not going to fully destroy the economic order and stuff because of this socioeconomic status part, right? This finally gives their children a chance in the future and gives them the same level of status as the higher income people, the middle class and the higher class. Finally, I'll be moving on to some refutation. Now, number 1, the PM stated how kids will probably feel bad. Kids will probably feel bad about their parents to like give them all of this money and stuff just to do this, but they never like really stated like another impact pluses. And also I'll be refuting this by saying how kids actually like once they feel bad, they're not gonna like just like give up or anything. This is actually a higher incentive to make them work even harder, you know, to prove how like the life of their the time and life that their parents gave them is actually worth it, and they actually use this like properly and stuff, right? And also they said how people who have used this will regret it in the future. Well, number one, as me and my partner have already stated, the only and like literally the major stakeholder in this situation is low income people. Middle class people, they already have enough income and stuff. High class people, they don't need any more money anymore. And the major stakeholder is the low income people, and their only regret is that they didn't provide enough for their children, right? That they didn't provide enough like resources and stuff for their kids. But now they actually can. And finally, as they stated, there's gonna be basic necessities, the price will increase, and like this really won't change anything. Well, number one, there's no certain metric or degree that you can prove there's economic change, which just completely removes this argument. And this is why I'm so proud to propose.
I thank that speaker for that excellent speech. I now call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Take care.
My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. In my speech, I will first start by refuting opening government's points, and then I will be moving on to elaborating to my partner's points. First of all, they mentioned how with RobSpear, people can break the cycle of poverty. Well, psychology has shown that once someone who is extremely poor, they get the first taste of luxury, they get the first taste of finally being well off, all they want is more and more and more, and they just keep on giving and signing their life away until they want more and more money, until you realize they've given half their life away. It's not fair. It's especially detrimental to poor people because they don't know what real life feels like or what well-off life feels like. They finally have a taste from this. They just want more. It's an addiction. Just like everything else, money is also an addiction. Yes?
They're likely doing this for their children so they can have a future. Number two, what is this psychology study?
Once you don't have anything, you finally have something, you just want more. That is part of psychology. And I'm glad you mentioned that they will do this for the children. This is kind of dark, so trigger warning. But some parents care about their children, that's true. Other parents may purposely give birth to children so their children can sign their lives away to make money. People will find ways to exploit this, and that is one of the reasons. They will be giving birth to kill the children later on. Not all parents are saints. This will very likely be a common mechanism throughout society. And another thing to prove my point about the psychology is lottery winners. Vast majority of lottery winners lose majority of their earnings within the first year. Why? Because they've likely been coming from a struggling place. They finally have money. They finally have wealth, and they spend it all. This will be exactly the case with RobSpear because they're very similar. Once someone finally has money, then they'll eventually kill themselves because they sign their life away so much. And it's also part of human psychology that we don't think about the future. We think about currently. So the human psychology would be, currently, I have money. I don't need to think about the future. That's like 90 years away. So what does it matter if I don't live another 2 years when I'm 98? And I'm also glad that government mentioned Little Timmy. So I will give you my version of Little Timmy's story. Little Timmy goes to RobSpear ATM. He's like, you know what? I want money. I'm going to sign off 10 years of my life for $100,000. Little Timmy leaves ATM. He goes to Dollarama. He finds out Kit Kat is now $100,000. One singular Kit Kat is now $100,000. Government mentioned how this isn't relevant. Do you know how inflation works? Inflation works because the government prints money, meaning they pull money out of nowhere. I'll take when I'm done. Government pulls the money out of nowhere. They're printing it so that the value of the dollar goes down. If you're taking money out of thin air, just like RobSpear is, then yes, the value of the dollar will decrease until it's virtually worth nothing. This is a very basic concept, and it happens to every single country. Yes.
Well, notice that you need consent, so children aren't going to be farmed. Number two, you can't prove the degree of change, and number three, the minority is probably not going to be that big of a
The degree of
population,
change.
which is method.
First of all, have you seen inflation? The degree of change is massive. As soon as people start printing more money, at least the government has parameters for how much money they can print. People can print as much as they want. Yeah, the dollar will go down. Then it's completely useless. You just signed your life away for nothing. You took off 40 years of your life for your money to be worth nothing. There are no benefits. You're basically just killing yourself. And it's very ironic because you mentioned moral obligation, and maybe your morals are really bad, but unless you think it's a moral obligation to encourage people to take years off their life and kill themselves, that's a you problem. Also, additionally, you said that children have to consent. Children who are young and don't know what RobSpear is, their mind is not fully developed. Their parents are like, little Timmy, just press button. Little Timmy, just say, I want $100,000. Little Timmy says, I just want $100,000 and say nothing else, okay? Little Timmy has 1, consented to RobSpear and killing himself, and 2, generated consensually money for his parents to exploit him. Moving on, I will be elaborating on my partner's points. Like she said, greed is a really powerful thing. For example, Taylor Swift. She is currently a billionaire, but recently she has been suing smaller artists for more money. Why? She has a billionaire empire. She's one of the most famous people in the world, and she still wants to hate on the young artists, and she still steals money from them. And you may say it's relative to their socioeconomic status, so they can't take too much money. But the thing is, like many celebrities, like Mike Tyson infamously, they have a bunch of money, they spend it all, they take more, okay? It doesn't matter. There's also no parameters or rules. They can go as much as they want until they die, as the motion says. And I'm just saying what I said again, it's more damaging to the poor because once they finally experience life, they can't go back. And lastly, most importantly, inflation will decrease the value of the dollar so much it doesn't even matter. Thank you. This is why I'm very proud to oppose.
I think that's bigger for that excellent speech. I think everybody for a good opening house. I now call upon the member of government. Here.
My debate will begin on my first. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So inside government, this House prefers the world where this RobSpear technology exists. So really quickly, I'm going to go through a summary of what the opposition tells us, as well as some refutations, and then I will be going on to my unique extension. So what the government bench basically tells us is that people are greedy, right? People are going to want more and more money after they sell their life away, and eventually they're going to realize they have no time left. I will be explaining to you why this is highly unlikely. Okay, so starting off, like, they also mentioned how really quickly that government, it can lead to corruption, like people can give birth just for the money, but the government isn't stupid, right? The government is probably likely the one in charge of this RobSpear tool, so I don't think the government would simply let you use a newborn baby and say like, oh yeah, I want to drain all this baby's lifespan for like 500K, right? I don't think the government is likely going to do that. So, then again, so like when they mention that people are greedy, this is very unlikely because opposition phrases this as a simple investment where people are just like investing some of their money for like more money. However, when it's an exchange of lives, people are obviously going to be more aware and be more careful when it comes to trading their lives away because, for example, when we're wasting time like playing games or like scrolling through TikTok, right? This time is being wasted, but unlike that, it's more direct, right? We're directly saying, oh, we're going to take like X, Y amount of time away from you, right? Knowing this, people won't like necessarily give away 2 years of their life because they know how long 2 years is, right? And I don't think people will necessarily spend it randomly 1 second. Yeah.
If people are willing to kill other people for money, why were they not willing to be able to take you?
Okay, so if they're killing other people for money, they're not killing themselves, right? They're receiving the money from harming others. But when it comes to exchanging the lives of themselves, they're obviously going to be more careful. And when it comes to exchanging their peers, like if they're going to exchange someone's life, if they're able to do that, it has to be someone they're close to, right? If it's someone like their relative, their children, their family, their friends, I don't get why someone would be likely to do this for the exchange of their own benefit unless they're really corrupted and the government, no thank you, would have some kind of prevention and control over that. So starting with my unique extension, I will be proving to you why this actually counter to what the opposition says, this actually bridges classism between the gap between the rich and the poor. So starting with my first argument, the rich are unlikely to use this tool. They gave an example of Elon Musk, right? But Elon Musk is really unlikely to use this tool because Elon Musk isn't dumb, right? He knows how to weigh his options because he has so much money. He's able to sustain life. He's able to get whatever he wants. Why would he sell away for example, 2 years of his life just to earn more money when he's able to provide for more he wants? Instead, he's going to rather choose this time to invest in other stuff that will get him more money if that is his interest at opposition's best case scenario. So obviously, Elon Musk and the rich people would prefer time over money. So getting on to my point, this actually bridges the gap between poor and the rich. Since we have already established by our opening that the poor are the ones who are most likely to use this tool and that they are the main stakeholders, let's consider their role in society. Right now, the poor people are struggling probably because they have low income jobs or maybe they don't have jobs at all, right? For example, McDonald's pays around 30 hours for an hour. Also, opposition doesn't really prove how it's different than spending your time working, because when you exchange, for example, 1 hour of your time for like $30, you're not only getting money from doing nothing, but instead you're like excluding the work and you don't have to work, and yeah, that's just better than exchanging 1 hour of time to do work. So it's like basically equivalent to the amount of time you spend at work. And obviously, if they're gonna take away a certain amount of your lifespan, the certain money you're gonna be given to the lifespan you're exchanging is obviously going to be higher than the lower income job. Let's say you work as a McDonald's worker and you earn like $25 per hour, right? And now let's say you exchange your lifespan for a total of $30 per hour. That means that people are more likely to just simply exchange their lifetime for $30 over $25 because obviously people want $30 when you at the same time spend the same amount of time and at the same time you don't have to work, right? So people are more likely to choose, no thank you, the Rob choice, right? So this being said, is the government simply gonna let people keep doing that? Also, money won't be really an issue because as time is cut off, that means we sustain less life, so the amount will be spent. So like, is the government really gonna let the poor people stop taking on the lower jobs? We need the lower jobs because we need the restaurant workers, we need the McDonald's, we need the cleaners, right? So the government obviously has to step up and add a higher wage into this that is higher than that. So that actually bridges the classism, because now the rich people are earning more money and more salary from their low income jobs compared to the poor people. Otherwise, this divide would not be divided and created in other reasons. So proud to oppose.
I thank that speaker for that excellent speech. I now call upon the member of opposition. Here. I thank that speaker for that excellent speech. I now call upon the government witness. Here.
Yay. Speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so on government side, we have a few main philosophies. The first one is living badly really living? It's a question of survival. Anyone can survive. Anyone can like get the basic physiological needs and survive. Okay, minus the poor people we're talking about. But in general, survival and living are two different things. Because when you live, you're actually enjoying your life. Survival is it's the bare minimum, and living is what goes beyond of that. Inside government, we believe in quality over quantity. Rather than having a really long and miserable 80-year life, we'd rather have something slightly better, and we would rather have a happy 60-year life. And then additionally, we also believe that we should let the people who want to live, and those who want to die honorably and die for the greater good. So right now, I need to paint a picture for you in two different worlds. The first world is one where government would prefer, and it's a world where people value their lives. In a world where people value their lives, there will be a very minimum amount of people who genuinely just don't want to live. In this case, there will, yes, I'll take your view on.
People value their lives so much more. People spend a bunch of money to buy drugs, even though they know it's going to kill themselves in the long run.
I actually want to talk about this in my next point, so if you could just give me a second and I swear I'll answer it. So in this world where they value their own lives, then we wouldn't have any of the abuse problem that side opposition has painted for us about people selling their lives constantly for a little bit of money that's unsubstantial. And then in the second world, it's one where opposition leans towards, and it's a world where people don't value their lives. They will trade their lives for anything, for any bit of money because of greed and stuff like that. So in this world, we believe that we should just let the people trade because it's their values. If they genuinely believe that this is for the better good, there's nothing we can do to stop them from doing this. And then, so now just to do and in that world in that world they're painting where people will trade their lives for anything. This ties into my partner's points about the economic improvement, because it prevents people from like the people, we still need workers for society to work. So therefore, if we need workers and we need to make sure that they will come work for us rather than sell their lives for money, then we need to make sure we're giving them ethical treatment and better pay. So at the end of the day, this leads to a better society where you will be required to give them a better life, like to generally just give society a better life in order for them to not trade it off and value their lives more, because they will value it more when they are more happy, and they are more happy when you treat them better. And because of this, I think we're able to like weigh over their world of that. So now on to some weighing. So what has opening government basically told us? They basically told us that it breaks the cycle of poverty, and it they should have the freedom of choice and follow their values. So I think they paint a very good picture for the poor. However, we believe that we consider more people than this. We talk about not just the poor, but also the addicts, the people who want to go through suicide. These are people who simply don't want to live because their life is falling apart. To them, living is not worth it anymore. And why would we spend so much effort trying to get them to live, rather than there are people who are perhaps with an illness and they really want to live. Give me no thank you, actually. And they really want to live. They will trade anything in order to live a better life. And in this world, why are we preventing the people who want to die from dying and letting the people who want to live die? In this world, we want a world where those who want to live get to live, and those who want to die get to die honorably and for the greater good, bringing more to their family, donating it to charity, doing it for a better cause. For someone who's like addicted to like perhaps a drug or something like that, or an alcohol, or maybe they're in a world where like they're abusing their family. They're like incapable of controlling their own addiction. So for them, this world is basically done. So why don't we like allow them to trade their lives for some money and give it to their wife, who perhaps they're abusing at home because of their addiction? In this case, we're letting the people who want to live, the wife, the children, the people who have hope and potential for a greater future. No, thank you. We're letting them live a better life, and we're letting those who are perhaps not, like they're perhaps done with this lifetime, trade in their lives for a better good. So in this sense, I think we're able to look at the stakeholders and therefore weigh over them. And then closing opposition basically tell us about abuse. We talked about the fact that in a world where people don't value and then there is abuse of this tactic, it will actually lead to a better economy and stuff like that. I think I already talked about that. And they told us about how it's not sustainable. We never said that this is sustainable. Instead, we're valuing towards a world where it's just simply quality over quantity. Those who want to live. And then we want to give the people who are living a better, more colorful life, rather than forcing them into their boring old jobs. This whole motion actually isn't that far from reality, because we see already examples of people selling their lives by working overtime, taking on multiple part-time jobs just to earn more money for a better living. They're doing all of this, and this is ultimately long-term already draining their lives, because they're trading in their health for money and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, this is already happening, and we would just want something in which the terms are written in black and white, which leads to a better society. Proud to.
Opposition left to close around.
My speech will begin on my first word. The most important thing that CO tells you in this round is that government inherently cannot derive the value from the money they receive, because money is not inherently valuable. It is not something that inherently is going to provide people joy. They do not tell us on government why this kind of wealth is so important. If we can prove that compromising the time and compromises the utility that people can derive from wealth, government loses this debate. The reason that poor people want money so badly in the first place is that it increases their capacity, oftentimes, to spend time with those they care about. It increases their capacity or opportunities to do things that they love and give life meaning. Through RobSpear, government fundamentally undermines this capacity for positive experiences.
Like they do not have the same time to derive joy from what they care about, like spending time or years with their kids or their parents, or doing what they love beyond just material goods, which we say do not inherently give these people's lives meaning or give these people fulfillment. Poor people can still access these kinds of things, like spending time with their kids, or for example, on our side of the house. This is just like the hedonic treadmill. Even when poor people have fewer opportunities than wealthier ones, they can still derive similar degrees of happiness from what they do have. Responding to closing government, yes, they are living, because the characterization that every poor person is just suicidally destitute to the point of being suicidal and not having any family or anything to care about is just incredibly uncharitable and a marginal impact. On their side of the house, they rob poor people of these joys that actually fundamentally give life meaning, the time that they can spend with their kids. Okay, maybe later. Two scenarios exist in this debate that could happen. First of all, these people use this money as savings while working at basically the same job, because a lump sum does not mean that you immediately have access to a sustainable income or a better job, for example. Fundamentally, actually, sure.
Are you aware that the people you're talking about who have potential for their lives are probably going to weigh the consequences and therefore not do this?
I don't understand what you're saying. We're not saying that they're going to spend so much, waste so many years of your life that they just die, but I'm gonna get to that later in my speech anyway. Fundamentally, this is not going to increase the time that they have with their kids in this scenario. This is not going to increase the time that they have to enjoy life. It's not going to increase their capacity to do what fulfills them in the years that they have. They're going to continue working this kind of menial labor. It's not going to make them happier and undermines the utility of this money that government attempts to access. No, thank you. But the second scenario then is that they just immediately start using this wealth to increase their quality of life in the status quo. They can buy a better house, for example. They can try to go to university, for example. They can stop their kids from working and make them focus on school instead. This leads into our second point that my partner tells you, which is that this wealth is not actually sustainable and that government cannot access their impact when people cannot truly break out of the cycles of poverty like government tells us. Our opening touches upon this by only saying that the money isn't going to last very long, but we tell you the actual structural reason behind this. Firstly, the poorest people that government is talking about who are most saliently affected in the short term by poverty, who can't put food on the table or can't pay rent or work instead of paying attention in school, when they receive a substantial lump sum proportionate to them. This is unique context that my partner adds, but it may not be substantial to the rest of the society. What does this look like? Because opening opposition does not tell you. This looks like, for example, receiving $50,000, which is a ton of money to someone who can't even consistently put food on the table, to someone currently so saliently affected by poverty. This is appealing because it is sufficient to alleviate the short-term suffering that they experience. They're willing to give away maybe 5 to 10 years of their life because to them this is like a nebulous period in the future that is not proportionate as in their minds to what they're currently experiencing right now saliently. This is insufficient to gain sustainable wealth. Insofar, it is not enough to last a lifetime of groceries. It's not enough to actually put your kids through university for 4 years. It's not enough to start a business that is going to actually help you grow your wealth. This also disproportionately affects those poorest stakeholders because they do not have the same money management skills or the capacity to exponentially increase their wealth as people who grew up privileges. They're systemically undereducated. There are no social structures in place to support them or teach them how to create a business. They don't have experience with this money. They don't have a consistent stream of income. This is why we see people who become immediately wealthy, like signing sports contracts for even millions of dollars, who have been dreaming about being able to access things like good houses or nice clothes for so long that when they have an opportunity to get those things finally in their lives, they're going to get them. And we say that even in government's best case, where people receive enough money and use it sustainably enough to achieve a higher basic standard of living, they're not actually able to access the utility of the money as insofar as it's going to sacrifice what they actually care about, what actually fulfills them, which is time with the people who they care about, for example. Proud to
I think that speaker for that excellent